Next we start with the story of our own evolution, the human evolution. Now, believe it or not, it starts obviously with the extinction of the dinosaurs, because if the dinosaurs would have never gone extinct, our ancestors wouldn't have been able to develop. At that point, right, this is something that is not in the textbook, but at that point our ancestors were something like a mice that used to stay buried under the ground. But once 7 crore years ago, when the dinosaurs went extinct, these mice like creatures started coming up. Some of them started climbing on trees, and then they eventually became primate like monkey like creatures, right? So let's have a look over here. So the last dinosaurs disappeared approximately 7 crore years ago. We know this because of a lot of paleontological evidences, because of the evidence from an asteroid impact in Mexico, right? So we are quite sure about it. Now at that time, monkey like animals are said to be evolved, as I told you, right? And they used to look like our modern day lemurs. Like there are lemurs over here, right, that stay over here. This is a lemur over here, right? Our ancestors used to look somewhat like that. Okay, then they had tails initially, right, these monkey like creatures, but the tail of these monkey like animals of Africa is said to be disappeared approximately 4 crore years ago. So from 7 crore years we are now fast forwarding to 4 crore years ago, okay, and the tail has started to disappear slowly, gradually. Obviously the changes are not happening overnight. You see, it's taking crores of years for even one characteristic to change. So they developed due to enlargement in their brain. They were trying to figure out different food sources. They were trying to figure out how to save themselves from predators, and that is why, since they are thinking so much, their brain capacity is increasing. Also their hands improved, so opposable thumb developed inside our ancestors so that they can grab the branches while swinging from one tree to another, and that helped them to develop certain tools to take stones, right, to crack the tough seeds, right. So also their hands improved, and thus ape like animals were also evolved. So now from the primate, from the monkey like creatures, ape like creatures, larger creatures have started to evolve. These ape like animals reached the South and the Northeast Asia. So they are now diversifying, they are going to different territories on earth, and they finally evolved into gibbons and orangutans. As you can see over here, so it's the gibbons and the orangutans. That is how they evolved. So diversification is happening. They are going to different places on earth. Remaining ape like animals stayed in Africa. So all this started from Africa. Some of them migrated to the North and East Asia. Some remained in Africa, and from them gorillas and chimpanzees evolved, and this happened approximately 2.5 crore years ago. So till here evolution is happening at a slower pace. The moment we reach 2 crore years ago, evolution starts taking a slight change, starts taking a slight turn. Evolution of some of the 2 crore year old species of the apes seem to be occurred in a different way. So slight differences are starting to happen over here. They had to use their hands more for eating food and other work as well. So the use of the hand increased in these particular apes that we are talking about, right. Those apes started to live more on land as the forest started to decline due to dry environment. So these changes were especially because of the environmental changes. Changes in any organism's body will obviously because of the changes in the environment. So initially they used to stay on the treetops, but now what's happening, since the density of the forest is decreasing, our ancestors are forced more and more to climb down from the tree. Otherwise they could just jump from one tree to another. But now because the trees are far away, they are forced to climb down, walk a certain distance, then climb another tree. So because of this, now their bone structure will evolve for walking. Okay, so their lumbar bones developed in such a way that they started to stand in erect posture, because once they came down, they had a lot of berries over here, okay, berries on the ground. So when they walked on 2 feet, that means the hands are free now. With the help of these hands, they could start picking berries, they could start climbing the trees even better now, right. So not only that, they could use these hands to make weapons now, so that they could protect themselves. They could start manipulating stones and making different types of tools. So a lot of evolution happening over here approximately 2 crore years ago. These first humans were using their hands. They had evolved approximately about 2 crore years ago, as we already spoke about it. The first record of human-like animals, okay, the animals that resemble human beings, only resemble, not completely look like us, obviously, was the Ramapithecus ape, which was found in the East Africa. Okay, and this is exactly how it looked. not exactly. Well, it used to look similar to this. So this is something that we have made from the fossils that we have received. Afterwards, what happened? The apes grew up in size. They started growing obviously and became more intelligent, and thus the ape of the South Africa evolved about 40 lakh years ago. So we are fast forwarding a lot over here. From 2 crore years ago we are coming to 40 lakh years ago. So obviously you can imagine how much evolution would have taken place. By now they would have learned how to make stone tools, how to make spears, how to make different strategies to hunt different creatures. So a lot of evolution happened in between this time. The morphology of these human-like animals started to appear like the members of the genus Homo, which is humans, about 20 lakh years ago. So from 40 lakh years ago to 20 lakh years ago, the morphology, the physiological appearance started looking more and more like us, like modern day humans. So a lot of changes happening over here. 5 lakh years later, so about 15 lakh years ago, human walking with erect posture, completely erect posture was evolved in China and Indonesia of the Asian continent. So what's happening? Initially also our ancestors were able to walk on 2 feet, but their spinal cord, their vertebral column was slightly bent. Okay, spinal cord in fact is present inside the vertebral column. Let's not confuse that. The vertebral column was slightly bent. Now that they started walking a lot more, the vertebral column started becoming completely erect. So our ancestors at this point started walking with an erect posture, right? Then furthermore, there was development of the brain for the period of about 1 lakh years, and meanwhile it discovered the fire. So our ancestors then discovered the fire. This was a very big turn in our evolution, because other animals were afraid of fire and they were running away from it. But because the size of the brain of our brain had increased, we were curious about why are these other animals afraid of fire. Can we use it to our advantage? And that is why we understood how to control fire and eventually even make fire, and not depend on lightning and other forest fires for a source of fire. So the discovery of fire, certainly a turning point in the evolution of humans. Fast forwarding 50,000 years now, a brain of 50,000-year-old man had been sufficiently evolved to be considered as the member of the class wise man, which we scientifically called as the Homo sapiens, which is the category that we belong to. Literally it translates into the wise man. What happened next? Neanderthal man was considered as the first example of the wise man, right? So Neanderthals, very smart creatures. They are not of our same species, but we know they were smart because they used to take care of their old. How do we know that? So there were bones that we found, and the bones were injured, but still the bones were of an old Neanderthal, which means others in the group used to take care of the old creatures, which means empathy has started to evolve now. So there's a lot of brain development, a lot of emotions we see, complex emotions are developing over here. Then came the Cro-Magnon man, evolved about 50,000 years ago and afterwards. So this evolution has been faster than earlier. So once Cro-Magnon man evolved, then they started exploring different territories. Because of their sharp mind, they could manipulate their environment to some extent, their immediate environment, that is, right? And they started using leather and fur from other creatures to cover their own body up. So a lot of evolution happening over here. About 10,000 years ago, wise man started to practice the agriculture. We actually understood that we don't need to roam around for food anymore. We can take the seeds of the plant, we can sow them in the soil, and we will get the same plants that from which we got the seeds, right? So that was a very big turning point in our evolution, the discovery of agriculture. We also started to rear cattle herds and establish cities. So wherever there was agriculture, animal husbandry was also done as a complementary business or work at that time. People started to join in more, and large groups of humans started to live together. So that is how cities had been formed, right? Very interesting thing over here. Art of writing was invented about 5,000 years ago. So brain development is simultaneously happening. We started writing things, we started noting events down, and that is when recorded history actually began. Then the modern science emerged about 400 years ago, right? So all these scientific discoveries that we have had, the major one of them started about 400 years ago, and the industrial society was established approximately 200 years ago because of industrial revolution. And still to this date, till this date, what we are doing is we have researched at this stage, and still we are searching the details of the roots of the human ancestry. We still are finding these missing gaps in our knowledge, and as time goes by, we'll keep understanding more and more about ourselves.